There's an infinite variety of plant shapes in the world, and every day there's more and more and more new ones that we're discovering. So I say let there be an infinite number of flower pot shapes. So I'm just raising this up, just centering it, getting everything centered. If you don't center it, it's like driving a car with a flat tire. You may get where you want to go, but you may also ruin the frame of the car. You may not get where you want to go. You may cause more damage. So when you're centering it, it's like balancing your tires. You got 4 tires. They're all full of air. One not more than the other. There you go. That's pretty centered. Good trick is just to put your finger up here. Your finger doesn't move when it's totally centered. You got your finger in here, right on the top. Finger doesn't move. So I know that's centered right now. So I just do the double dip method right here. I'm pushing straight down. And if this looks simple, it's because it is. This is very, very simple when you've got a centered lump of clay. And so I want to check how far I am from the bottom here. Got my needle tool. About a ½ inch off the bottom, that's fine, because we're going to carve a foot out of this in a day or two. Right now I'm pulling the wall out. There, maybe I can lift this and you'll be able to see what I'm doing here, if I can do this right. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Pulling the wall out. And as wide as we want to go. We want a tall flower pot, we want a wide flower pot. This one's going to be a medium flower pot. Now I want to compress the bottom. What I'm going to do here is just take my sponge and I'm just pushing down. This makes sure that no cracks develop through the drying process and the firing process. Really, the closer all these clay molecules are to one another, the more they want to stay close to each other. And the more that they want to stay close to each other, the more they actually do stay close to each other. And they tend not to form cracks. So I've got this beautifully compressed bottom now. And I'll come back to that. And now we're just going to raise up the walls. And we're looking for consistent wall thickness, of course. I've got some pieces of pottery that you can hit with your knuckles, and they sound like musical instruments. It's because the sound waves can vibrate through these clay walls, and the more the thickness of the walls is consistent, the easier it is for those sound waves to resonate through the walls. And so you can get some very beautiful intonations. Not to mention the fact that having consistent walls means you have a nice balanced piece. It won't want to fall over. It will absorb and release moisture at the same consistent rate throughout. So when you're working with nice clay, I know this is designed clay that I designed this clay specific to my needs and my throwing. When you're working with that clay and you're comfortable with that clay, it doesn't take a lot of physical effort. Like I said, the hardest work I did was the wedging, and of course you saw the fiasco with the mixing of the clay, but that mixing, that was an operator error for sure. Never put big bulky objects in a bucket of wet clay that you're gonna swirl something around at about 1,000 RPMs in while you're holding onto the thing that's swirling around. So we're just raising this up and forming it at the same sort of speed. As much as I'm getting the wall thickness the same, I'm also shaping this. You know, is this going to be bowl shaped? I think so. And a lot of that is being informed to me as I'm throwing this bowl. I know that each piece of clay certainly wants to be a certain object, and you're really in an object. A clay form is the sum of all of the work that went into it. So the mixing, the wedging, the way I center it, how far I pull it out, the pressures I'm putting on it right now, all are leading up to this final indication of what this final form is going to look like. And ultimately, the use, what this is going to be used for, has a big say too. For example, if I was going to make a coffee cup, I probably would not make something this big unless I was making coffee cups for big, gigantic creatures that drank about 2 gallons of coffee in the morning before they have their cigarette, you know. I shouldn't say that. And if I was making coffee for big giants that drink 2 gallons of coffee in the morning before they wake up. So, no, this is a flower pot. And I think it started to look like a very beautiful bowl-shaped flower pot. I can come back later and do the final trimming. Right now, I just want to make sure that my walls are thick, because I don't want to make a really heavy piece. I want to make sure that my walls are that's not too bad. That's a 1/4 inch down at the bottom. It's still a little bulky, so I am going to take a little bit more out. But this is a flower pot, and it's going to be a lot of weight in here, okay? Like I said, this is not a teacup. teacups can be very, very, very thin because at most they're only going to have a cup of water in them. But this thing is going to have rocks in the bottom and soil and a lot of organics, and then you're going to add a liter of water to it every week. It's going to get heavy. A potted flower can weigh 25 pounds. And so this form it cannot be paper thin and still perform its duties. So I am shooting for a good 1/8 of an inch thickness because I don't want this thing to be too heavy right off the bat. So I think we're right about where we want to be. Now it's a matter of see what we have here. It's a matter of just getting the final finishing edge that I want on. So just in the outside surface still has all the lines from this sponge I'm using. So what I want to do, and what I'm going to do, is just take a tool to the outside of this surface and give it this nice shaved, clean surface without any throwing lines, just for this particular one. There's a number of pieces where I would keep the throwing lines in. And even on this one, you can add some throwing lines. I might add just a nice stripe right here. Just something to grab onto if you're moving this pot around. Just a couple lines like that. And I'm going to come back and trim this surface down towards the bottom of the foot. But before I do that, the whole thing will need to dry up. It's still very wet right now. I could just take my hand down very easily and just demolish this piece right now. It's very wet, very fragile. But I'm not going to. I happen to like this piece. So right now I'm just taking my 3 fingers across the top here, just getting a nice edge on. Might even clean that up a notch. Okay. Don't want any sharp edges on this stuff. Well, that's about all there is until I come back to do the final trimming. So we're going to set this off to the side. Let me find a towel. I guess I don't need a towel. This is usually the part. Oh, shoot. As I say it, it's done. I said this is usually the part that mistakes happen. And look, I just landed my finger in there. So, let's treat this as a learning.